There's a recent poll of young Americans, and an astonishingly high number identify with Hamas. This is not a survey of Harvard undergrads. It's young Americans getting their information from TikTok and Hassan Piker Twitch and who knows what else. So I do think that is real, and the kind of inoculation perhaps that was granted to a generation above us that, I guess the Shoah inadvertently provided, that inoculation is gone. It's gone.
I think it's not just that has gone. I think that there's something very important psychologically, which if I can say so, which I identify in the book, which is, in the book before this, The War on the West, I talked at some length about the anti-Americanism and anti-Westernism that existed in America in particular. And what I said there was that there was a very dangerous thing being set up in the United States and in other Western countries, which was that young people born in the 21st century were being told that they were guilty of things that they could not possibly, conceivably, be said to have guilt for. You are guilty if you are born in America in the 21st century of slavery, genocide, ethnic cleansing, white supremacy, and so on. These are all charges you can take on their own, and they have more and less legitimacy wherever you want to look in the American past, as in any country's past. But to say to people, you are guilty, with no form of alleviation of the guilt, was, as I said in The War on the West, an extremely dangerous trap to put people into. I lent on Hannah Arendt's philosophy on this, about the not setting up a system of guilt with no possibility of forgiveness. And I said in The War on the West, I didn't know exactly how it was going to manifest. I could see it manifesting in the Western anti-Westernism and the American anti-Americanism. The one thing you can be sure of, as Alan Bloom said in the 1980s, one thing you could be sure of was not just that a student at an American elite university would think that all truth was relative, but by the 2020s that all of the problems of the world were our fault. Now, as I see it, much of the reaction of the student groups and so on, first of all, it's all imported in one way or another.
Well, the ideas are Soviet.
There's that. There's also the fact that honor our martyrs. Come on. This is imported crap. This is Qatari-funded, Qatari-influenced, Iranian-influenced import ideology. This is not a generic ideology that happened to crop up at Yale.
But I want to push back on that, because I do think that's a little bit of a cope. Like, we have a huge story in the Free Press today about the $29 billion from foreign governments, including Qatar and China, that have flowed into elite universities. And if you're looking to invest and pour fuel on a fire of anti-Americanism, you can do no better than the Ivy League. But let's not delude ourselves into thinking that...
I'm by no means pretending that that's the only cause. I'm saying that once something is pushed like this, once a kerosene like this is pushed by a foreign power into a highly receptive environment, something happens. And I'll just quickly explain what it is that's happened. What has happened in the last 18 months, and not just on the campuses, at Grand Union Station here in New York the other night, where pro-Hamas protesters shut the station down again. What they're doing is what a psychologist would call projection. They are accusing the state of Israel of all of the things that they have been taught that they themselves are guilty of. They have been told that by dint of being in America in the 21st century, you are on stolen land. What do you do about it? Do any of the kids or their professors in question want to hand over the ground of UCLA to a tribe that has died out? And they don't. They could. They don't. But what can you do, I wonder? It turns out that you can accuse the one Jewish state in the world of all of the crimes that you have been told you are guilty of by dint of being born in the West. Why does this stuff work so well in specific countries? Works so well in America, so well in Australia, so well in Canada, so well in Britain, in the Anglosphere, effectively. Because all of these countries have been prepared for this in recent years. They have all been prepared, knowingly or otherwise, for just such a moment of scapegoatism. Just such a moment where you can say all of my sins, all of the things that I've been like the Scientologists, with the particles they believe that you get from some.
This is how they go. This is how you go clear.
This is how you go clear. This is how you decide your student days will be best spent hollering against the state of Israel, because you can accuse them of all the things you've been told you're guilty of. This is projection on a massive scale, but the evil that it reveals is extraordinary. I give an example in the book I give many examples, but one of the ones that really shattered me was that when the Nova Party, which as people will know was one of the targets that Hamas came upon that morning, October the 7th, 2023, when the Nova Party was memorialized, it was an exhibition you probably saw. I saw it in Tel Aviv when it started, but it was a memorial exhibition and a sort of recreation of what happened, testimony, and the exhibition traveled to Los Angeles and also here to New York, not far from where we're sitting at the moment. And when this exhibition opened, it was greeted by hundreds of protesters, some of whom on the way, you'll remember, covered their faces in kafirs and COVID masks because, as I can never resist saying, these people are simultaneously hot for intifada and fearful of the COVID-19 virus. Wildly worried about the Delta variant, I'm sure we can agree. But these cowards, the new KKK, they cover their faces just like this. They're cowards. These people are on the New York subway chanting, asking for any Zionists to identify themselves and get off the train. They get to the center of New York and they go to the Nova exhibition and they stand outside and they chant support for Hamas, support for intifada, support for the murder of people at the Nova Party, claim that the Nova Party itself was guilty and a legitimate target. One of the men walking through the street of New York that day to the exhibition was the father who lost his daughters at the party. He had to walk in New York past a crowd of hundreds of people with a stage and megaphones celebrating the murder of his children. What level of evil do you have to have fallen into that you would think that you would stand outside a memorial to the young people killed at that party and say that the young people dancing in the early hours were guilty and deserved the slaughter and the rape and the murder and the beheading and the kidnapping? This is not a problem for Israel, and I've said this since October the 8th. This is not a problem for Israel. Israel has an army, and it has a civilian army, and it has the right to make its own decisions about how it protects itself. But this is a profound problem for America and the rest of the West, that we have people in our midst who glorify in the death cults, who find it easy to decide. Some people find it difficult to decide whether they're on the side of Israel or Hamas. I don't. I know which side I'm on. I know which side I want to thrive and to win. And I know which side I want to be over, in order that the Israelis can live in peace and the Palestinians can live in peace. Hamas is a disaster for Israel, but it's an even bigger disaster for the Palestinians. But that aside, why do so many people find it so easy to be on the side of the death cult of Hamas? And why do so many of them, not sure which side I'm on here, same people who said for years believe all women, they don't believe Israeli women when they're raped. They simultaneously deny that women were raped on the 7th of October and claim that the IDF, when they go into Gaza, can't help but rape women. Once again, projection. You claim that Israel is doing things your own side is doing.
What?
They accuse the Israelis of being baby killers.
I see everything you've...
They support the baby killers. They literally love the baby killers.